A lone Ukrainian pilot, flying a damaged MiG-29 with a failing engine, low fuel, and jammed GPS, just exposed a fatal weakness in Russia's most advanced air defenses. In a near-suicidal mission, he unleashed a French-made glide bomb that slipped past Moscow's billion-dollar S-400 and Pantsir systems, causing a massive explosion. This single, desperate act didn't just destroy its target. It proved that Russia's air defense shield is a house of cards. And wait until you see how Ukraine is using this same tactic to dismantle Russia's navy, piece by piece. In early September of 2025, a Ukrainian Air Force pilot climbed into the cockpit of his MiG-29, knowing the mission ahead was bordering on suicidal. He was flying a Soviet-era jet plagued by a cascade of critical failures, a damaged engine, critically low fuel reserves, and failing weapons systems. To make matters worse, the battle space was saturated with Russian electronic warfare, constantly trying to jam his GPS and navigation. This dangerous context is what makes this story so incredible. Success wasn't going to come from a perfect jet in a clear sky, but from the raw determination of a pilot pushing his machine to its absolute limit. His target was a Russian border guard post in the Zaporizhzhia direction, a tactical but valuable node in Russia's forward defense network. The timing made the mission even more dangerous. As he flew, Russia was in the middle of launching one of its heaviest aerial barrages of the war. In a massive, coordinated assault, 595 drones and 48 missiles were raining down on targets across Ukraine. The sky was a chaotic maelstrom of active air defenses and enemy patrols. The key to this mission was the weapon hanging under the MiG's wing, the French-supplied AASM HIMARS precision-guided munition. Let me tell you, this is not a simple bomb. It's a sophisticated kit that turns a standard 550-pound bomb into a long-range standoff weapon. With a rocket motor on its tail, the HIMARS can glide for over 43 miles, allowing the pilot to release it far outside the lethal range of Russia's frontline air defenses. Its guidance system is also brilliantly modular. While it can use GPS, it also has an infrared homing seeker. This allows the bomb to visually lock onto a preloaded image of the target in its final moments, making it immune to Russian GPS jamming. Against all odds, the pilot reached his launch point. He tried to release 2 of the glide bombs. The first one misfired, a likely victim of the jet's failing electronics. But the second bomb came off the rails perfectly. As it screamed toward its target, Russian Pantsir S-1 and S-400 air defense systems came alive, firing their interceptor missiles. But they failed. The HIMARS was too small, too fast on its final descent, and it entered their detection range too late. It slammed into the Russian post, detonating in a massive fuel-air explosion that was confirmed to have destroyed 3 armored vehicles. As the Ukrainian Air Force later detailed in their official report, a MiG-29 fighter delivers a precision strike on an enemy UAV control point. The second bomb destroys the enemy ammunition and fuel depot. This was more than technology. It was NATO's doctrine of mission command in action, trusting a pilot to push forward despite failing systems. And this wasn't a one-off raid. It was the start of a strategy Ukraine would unleash on the sea. The logic that allowed a crippled MiG to outsmart a billion-dollar air defense network is the exact same logic Ukraine is using to dismantle Russia's formidable Black Sea fleet. This is the doctrine of asymmetric attrition, using cheap, smart, and numerous weapons to neutralize an enemy's most expensive and powerful assets. What the AASM HIMARS is to the air war, the MAGURA V5 sea drone is to the naval war. As Air Marshal Johnny Stringer, Deputy Commander of NATO's Allied Air Command, observed of such low-cost innovations, you could conduct most, if not all, of the air power roles for the price of a drone, a laptop, and some imagination. A perfect example of this was the raid conducted by Ukraine's military intelligence, the HUR, in the Sea of Azov. The target was a Project 216031 Buyan-M corvette, a modern Russian warship armed with deadly caliber land attack cruise missiles. The Ukrainian attack wasn't a simple brute force assault. It was a sophisticated two-pronged operation. First, they used a wave of drones to attack and disable the shore-based radar network that Russia relies on for surveillance over the sea. This is the exact same tactic as targeting the Podlet K-1 radars that act as the eyes for the S-400 systems. With the enemy blinded, the main attack began. A swarm of Ukrainian sea drones converged on the Buyan-M corvette. The drones slammed into the warship, crippling its onboard sensors and missile launch systems. The attack achieved a perfect mission for elimination. The damaged corvette was forced to retreat, unable to fire a single missile. This has become a familiar story. Since 2024, Ukraine's sea drones have systematically hunted Russia's fleet. The primary weapon in this campaign has been the MAGURA V5. This is an 18-foot-long unmanned boat that costs only around $273,000. It can carry a payload of over 660 pounds, has a range of nearly 500 miles, and can hit a top speed of almost 50 miles per hour. This drone has been used to sink or severely damage a stunning list of Russian warships, including the missile corvette Ivanovets, the large landing ship Tsaitser Kunekev, and the patrol ship Sergei Kotov. The campaign has been so successful that Russia has been forced to pull most of its valuable warships from its main base in occupied Sevastopol, effectively conceding naval control of the western Black Sea to a country that barely has a traditional navy left. In the midst of one such barrage that overlapped with the pilot's mission, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky captured the relentless pressure, stating, "While the UN was holding General Assembly sessions, Russia had literally used every day, every hour to strike at Ukraine. Vile strikes." Truth be told, Russia has tried desperately to adapt. They've bolted new navalized Pantsir air defense systems onto their ships, installed advanced TK-25E electronic jammers, and deployed crude floating booms around their harbors. But none of it has been enough. The Ukrainian sea drones are simply too difficult to stop. They fly at a height of just 3 to 5 meters, or about 10 to 16 feet above the water, hiding in the clutter of the waves. They use frequency-hopping communication links that are incredibly resistant to jamming. A warship's defenses, designed to track a handful of anti-ship missiles, are simply overwhelmed by a coordinated swarm of 10 or more sea drones attacking from multiple directions at once. These victories in the air and at sea aren't just good news for Ukraine. They are real-world lessons being watched very closely in the West. And what NATO is doing with that information is now reshaping the entire map of Europe. The lessons from Ukraine's battlefields have triggered the most significant military transformation on NATO's eastern flank since the Cold War. The alliance is moving from a tripwire force to a hardened forward defense, designed not just to punish an attack, but to stop it dead in its tracks. At the center of this shift is Poland, which is rapidly becoming a continental military superpower. Warsaw's defense spending has surged to over 4% of its GDP, the highest in all of NATO, funding a defense budget that will top $40 billion by 2030. The goal is to build an army of over 300,000 troops and field one of Europe's largest and most modern tank fleets, with over 1,500 advanced tanks, including American M1 Abrams and South Korean K2 Black Panthers. As NATO's Secretary-General Mark Rutte emphasized in a recent address, the alliance must shift to a wartime mindset and turbocharge our defense production and defense spending. This transformation is being fueled by a non-stop air bridge of American weapons. U.S. C-17 cargo planes are landing daily, unloading $780 million worth of Javelin anti-tank missiles in Poland, while new HIMARS rocket artillery batteries are flowing into Romania, giving it the ability to strike Russian assets in Crimea. Further north, Estonia is acquiring its own HIMARS, along with long-range ATACMS missiles and HARM anti-radiation missiles designed specifically to hunt and destroy Russian S-400 systems. But the real shock for Russian military planners is the introduction of entirely new classes of weapons. The U.S. Army is now deploying Textron's XM-204 smart ambush mines to Europe. These are not traditional mines. A small team of soldiers can place one in under 5 minutes and walk away. The mine uses seismic and acoustic sensors to listen, and when it detects the signature of a Russian tank, it launches a projectile that strikes the vehicle's vulnerable top armor. Let me tell you, this flood of new hardware is just the visible part of a much deeper transformation. The war in Ukraine has been a brutal reminder that a major conflict in the 21st century is a grinding industrial-scale war of attrition. For decades, NATO planned for short, sharp conflicts. But the reality is that a peer-level war consumes ammunition and equipment at a staggering rate. This has forced a complete rethinking of military logistics and industrial capacity across the West. Here's the thing that has changed forever: the end of sanctuary. The idea of a safe rear area is now completely obsolete. With the proliferation of long-range precision missiles, spy satellites, and constant drone surveillance, everything is a target. Logistics hubs, command centers, and air bases hundreds of miles from the front line are now vulnerable to immediate and devastating strikes. This new reality has forced a revolution in how NATO plans to operate. For air forces, this means fully embracing a concept called Agile Combat Employment, or ACE, Instead of operating from a few large, comfortable air bases, fighter jets and support aircraft must now be constantly on the move, dispersing to smaller, more austere airfields to avoid being easy targets on the ground. What this really means is that victory is no longer just about having the best tanks or jets. It's about which side can master a new trinity of modern warfare: sensors, networking, and precision effects. This is the new formula for winning. It means using everything from satellites to small drones to find the enemy, networking that information instantly to every unit on the battlefield, and then delivering a precise, lethal strike with the right weapon, whether it's a HIMARS rocket or a $5,000 FPV drone. This is the playbook Ukraine wrote in blood, and NATO is studying with terrifying urgency. As U.S. Space Force General Gregory Gagnon noted, the information space became just as important as missiles and drones, shaping both battlefield command and global perception. These hardware changes are being matched by a deep shift in strategy. NATO has embraced the doctrine of mission command, the very philosophy that allowed the lone MiG pilot to succeed. It empowers soldiers to take initiative, a stark contrast to Russia's rigid top-down approach. The alliance is also grappling with the lessons of cheap, disposable weapons, learning from how $5,000 FPV drones have destroyed multi-million-dollar Russian tanks. And with Finland and Sweden now in the alliance, NATO gains critical expertise in Arctic warfare and can effectively turn the Baltic Sea into a strategic choke point. Even Vladimir Putin's nuclear blackmail has been blunted. In September of 2025, the U.S. deployed its modernized B-6112 tactical nuclear bombs to Europe. With a guided tail kit for incredible precision and a variable yield, it is a more credible and flexible deterrent. The message to Moscow is clear. What began with one desperate MiG pilot has become a continental strategy Russia cannot stop.